Sluggish global growth started hitting Latin America last year, but Venezuela's situation puts it all in perspective. With an economy on the verge of collapse thanks to sinking oil prices, Venezuelans have faced currency devaluation, inflation running over 275%, and shortages of the basics, like food and medicine. This year, the country may take a decisive punch, the biggest ever emerging market sovereign default.
Venezuela, for the past 10 years, has enjoyed high oil revenues due to the fact that oil was so high. Not only did they enjoy high oil revenues, but they also went out and asked for loans, international loans, to spend more on their social agenda that they had planned out when Chavez got elected. So what we're seeing right now is that a country that was quite dependent on oil is suffering because the price of oil has dropped so much.
Venezuela has $35.6 billion of bonds outstanding and owes $67 billion with interest. The country's state-owned oil firm, PDVSA, owes $52.6 billion counting interest. This fall, PDVSA needs to pay back $4.1 billion of bonds and $1 billion in interest.
With the oil prices where we have them right now, we see a funding gap for the country's balance of payments of about $30 billion.
How did the country get to this point? Oil makes up 95% of Venezuela's export earnings, and the country used the revenue to keep its budget in check, importing more than 70% of consumer goods. Bloomberg estimates consumer prices will jump 152% in 2016.
This year, we're going to see the government having to really choose between keep basic supply of medicine and food or honoring its debt abroad. Right now, for an ordinary Venezuelan, it's not only the amount of money due to the inflation, it's also the amount of time that they have to invest in getting some of the basic foods, basic medicines. If you have right now a serious disease like cancer, HIV, you're very unlikely to find the medicines that you need. So we're starting to see a political repercussion of not having enough dollars to pay for basic imports.
Maduro raised the price of gas for the first time in 20 years and changed the currency exchange systems. But analysts think such steps aren't enough.
We think that these measures, the recently announced measures to hike gas prices, to decrease the complexity of the exchange rate system, they're, from our point of view, too little too late at this point. Economic crisis or economic contraction, the possibility of a default is becoming much higher. We do believe that the government is likely to default by the end of this year.
So then, what happens?
Venezuela, in the current situation without oil, doesn't function at all.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why I think that both recovery and resolution comes not necessarily because the process looks easy given how big it is because there are going to be few times in which a debtor in default would be so desperate to reach an agreement to return to normality, because I think that's a big difference between this case or Argentina, for example. Argentina got all the foreign currency out of export from the private sector. Here is all linked to productive assets that need to be exported. And they belong to the government. The ability to disrupt that is huge.
Even though Venezuela, the optics of it, you don't think of us as a globalized country, it is globalized. I mean, Venezuela owns very important assets here in the United States, all over the world. If you're an oil-producing country, you need to have a network of assets all over the world. Those assets are going to become the key player in an event of a default, since that's what the country uses as collateral for its debt. The positive thing is that this will wake up Venezuelans and the markets not to rely so heavily on one commodity, regardless of how high the price of it is and how competitive you are at it. I think that this will forever change the composition of the Venezuelan economy, and that will be a positive thing.
For ASCOA Online, this is Luisa Leme with production by Holly Sonneland. For more news and analysis on Latin America, visit as-coa.org and subscribe to our YouTube channel.